Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I wish to express my pleasure being with you all this evening. I am obliged to the organizers of this event honoring me by inviting to deliver the memorial lecture today. Leader S.K.V. Chelvanayan QC, whom we are remembering today, was an outstanding personality in the fields of politics and law in Sri Lanka. He devoted his life and wealth to the well-being of the Tamil nation. The political and constitutional program he proposed and advocated were aimed at preserving the dignity and identity of the Tamil nation in their homeland. Before I focus the topic, I feel it is important to set the scene by beginning the lecture by referring to a statement made by an MP in the House of Commons of the British Parliament. In order to mark this lecture today, friends, I have produced an 18 pages document preparing the title as Tamil Legal Dimension of the Sovereignty Claim of the Tamil Nation of Sri Lanka, a focus on the role of leader S.K.V. Chelvanayan QC in evolving the concepts of self-rule, autonomy and federalism in Sri Lanka. I referred about the MP's talk in the British Parliament. Before many of you and I were born, a bill titled Ceylon Independent Bill 1947 was presented to the House of Commons to decolonize Ceylon and grant independence due to the fact that after British India was decolonized by creating two states, India and Pakistan in 1947, the island would be less beneficial based on the cost and benefit of the analysis. The beneficial factors of Britain were protected by signing a defense agreement for the use of Trincomalee Naval Base and Air Force Base at Katunayaka. During the debate at the House of Commons, many MPs sent their greetings to the people of Ceylon and warned the danger of communism, which would be a threat to the democracy of the country. However, Mr. Gummins, the MP for Hornsey electorate, his first name is not mentioned in the Hansard of the Parliament. His surname was mentioned, Mr. Gummins. He has warned the Labour government at the time. He has mentioned Ceylon is not a single racial unit. There are two races in Ceylon, the Sinhalese and the Yatha Tamil, who are in the northern part of the island and number 1.5 million out of a total of 6.5 million. They differ from the Sinhalese in religion, race, and to a large extent in background. They are extremely capable and intelligent people. Where there is a racial minorities in the country, the danger is that it may become permanent political minority. And if it does become a permanent political minority, Ceylon's evolution on a democratic basis is bound to fail. He further went on to say, this imposes on the two peoples of Ceylon a very great responsibility. It imposes on the Sinhalese the responsibility of seeing that they grant fair and if necessary rather more than fair treatment to the minority, not only in the political power but also in the administrative responsibility, so that the minority is not inevitably driven to regard itself as a permanent political minority. Again, this background, I am sure, Mr. Chairman, you and my honorable audience, you all will agree this is a perfect political prediction on the politics and the consequences of the political events in Sri Lanka. Again, as far as Mr. Leader Chelvanayan is concerned, the first independent parliament led by D.S. Senanayaka enacted the act to defranchise the Tamils who were the backbone of the plantation economy of the country. I can see all of you are much well experienced and senior politicians, senior social activists. Therefore, I don't wish to go into detail that aspect. One point I wish to emphasize on the Citizenship Act Act which defranchised the 17% of the Tamil population in Sri Lanka. During the debate, Mr. Chelvanayagam has pointed out periodically, he has made a comparison. Periodically, Tamils from South India were brought in during the colonial rule and settled in the south of Ceylon, where they had lost their identity and assimilated with the wider society. However, the Tamils in the plantation area brought in by the British had maintained their socio-cultural identity. Therefore, they were punished by the proposed Citizenship Act. Tamil MPs and the Tamil MPs who were representing the plantation area and also the members of the left parties, they have opposed that bill which is terminating the citizenship of the plantation Tamil. As far as the government was concerned, the act contained two edges for reducing the strength of the Tamils in the plantation area, as well as leftists who had the vote bank in the plantation area. During that further, as the results of the termination of the citizenship to the plantation Tamils, there were involvement by the Indian government, and there were two treaties were signed between India and Sri Lanka without the participation of the affected people. Nehru-Kottaravali Agreement and Sastri-Srimavo Pact was signed, and this was not the full satisfactory for the benefit of the affected people. During that time, immediately after the independence, Sri Lankan government, they have involved in colonizing the systematic colonization in the Tamil area, northern eastern provinces, in order to undermine the rights and the claims of the Tamil people. Therefore, Mr. Chelvanayagam and the other Tamil MPs crossed the floor and resigned from the SLF, from the Tamil Congress, and they have inaugurated the federal party. I don't want to go into details, although I have prepared a substantial in the document. As far as federal party is concerned, it's a brainchild of Mr. Chelvanayagam, and since 1952, in almost all the elections, they have field candidates, and other than 1952, rest of the election, federal party has became as the dominant party of the Tamil people. And we can call even that was the sole representatives of the Tamil prior to LTT. Again, as far as 1970 election is concerned, it was a very critical or important in the politics of Sri Lanka. Because 1965 up to 1970, federal party was part of the UNP-led government, and since then there were agitation from the Sinhalese that Tamil rights should not be respected. Therefore, SLP and the left party, they formed the coalition and made the use of the opportunity. And in the 1970 election, they have sought mandate from the Sinhala people to seek to draft a new constitution. In the manifesto, they have asked, "We seek your mandate to permit the members of the parliament you elect to function as MP simultaneously to constitute an assembly to draft and adapt a new constitution. The constitution will declare Ceylon to be a free, sovereign and independent republic to pledge to realize the objective of socialist democracy." In the election, MEP won more than two-thirds majority, while the federal party obtained almost all the seats in the northern eastern provinces. It reflected the emergence of two nationalism once again. Mrs. Bandaranaike at the time, the Prime Minister, she invited all the party members to attend the Constitutional Assembly inaugural meeting, and Mr. Kadhavet Pillai, he has mentioned, we believe in Buddhist philosophy, and as Buddhists, you will recognize you will treat us as according to the Buddha's preaching, therefore we are attending. Again, Kolvinarthi Silva, who advocated for parity for Tamils, and he was the minister at the time, he was appointed as the Minister for Constitutional Affairs. I don't want to go in detail how they have treated us, but for record purposes, I want to emphasize, or I want to comment on the constitution drafted by the federal party in order to bring the amendment to the main draft of the constitution submitted by Dr. Kalvanarthi Silva. In the memorandum prepared by the federal party, they have outlined historical background of the communities in the island of Ceylon and claim entitlement of the Tamil nation to the right to restoration of lost sovereignty. It emphasizes that the principle of equality can only be assured by means of federal constitution, and appeal that it would be the only solution preventing the Tamil people from demanding full restoration of their sovereignty that existed prior to colonial rule. The memorandum of the draft constitution claimed that it was submitted with a genuine intention of creating conditions in which cultural and social identity of the Tamil people could be preserved while maintaining the coexistence of the community. Mr. Chelvanayagam, when he submitted this draft constitution to the Constitutional Assembly, I wish to summarize the substance of the draft. It contained 7 sections. First section outlined the federal units of Ceylon. They demanded for in total 5 units, 3 for the Sinhalese and 1 for the Tamils and 1 for the Muslims. And they also asked the citizenship terminated by the 1949 Act, and affected people should be given Sri Lankan citizenship. They have asked to give constitutional endorsement to fundamental rights and use a right to use a singular language in appropriate manner. As far as the voting, when this entire proposals amendment was taken for debate, it was a majority, single majority MPs. It was all the amendments were defeated, other than Sri Lanka can be called in Tamil as Ilankai. So, as a result of the defeat of the memorandum submitted by the federal party, Mr. Chelvanayagam made a statement in the parliament. I wish to briefly mention or bring the few lines for your attention. It sought to embody the language of the country into the proposed constitution. At a time like this, no one can deny reasonableness of our demand that the language rights of the Tamil-speaking people should be defined in the constitution. We moved several amendments regarding the nature of the constitution, citizenship rights, and other fundamental rights. All these amendments have been rejected. In these circumstances, we have come to the painful conclusion that as our language rights are not satisfactorily provided for in the proposed constitution, no useful purpose will be served by continuing the deliberations of this assembly. By taking this step, we mean no offense to anybody. We only want to safeguard the dignity of the people. Since then, Tamil party, federal party did not participate in the constitution drafting process. Once it was proclaimed, then we all know it was a complete frustrating situation for Tamils and Tamil leaders. Therefore, federal party and the Tamil Congress united, and they formed the TULF, and thereafter they adopted the Vatukota resolution. Thereafter, the parliamentary, in 1977 election, Sri Lankan Tamils fully endorsed the Vatukota resolution, and based on that, they were 1977 election. Mr. Amarthalingam became the political leader, opposition leader of the country. It is to point out another important factor. As far as Mr. Selvarayam is concerned, he is the first person in Sri Lankan political history who proposed a separate administrative and political unit for Muslim people. At the time, at the draft, when 1972 Constitution was drafted, a memorandum was submitted by Old Ceylon Moose Association. Old Ceylon Moose Association's memorandum has been very comprehensive and reflected the grievances of the Muslim community in Ceylon. While it favored the unitary state, it proposed number of amendments to the main draft of the government. It proposed a charter to guarantee the category of fundamental rights and constitutional safeguard of these rights. The memorandum also referred to the colonial grievances of Muslim community and their lack of social economic development during the colonial time, and proposed a provision for equality of opportunity. The association heavily relied on the provisions taken from the Indian Constitution. Here I wish to mention, at the time, on behalf of Muslim people, there were no any administrative or political unit were claimed. Federal party is the only political party submitted the amendment in order to, not only for Tamils, only for Muslim people also. கௌரவ அமைச்சர் மனோ கணேசன் அவர்களே, so far I have just outlined how Mr. Selvarayam and the federal party advocated for federal constitution, and how Tamil people have created a constitutional norm in order to live in Sri Lanka with dignity. Very briefly, I wish to, I am sure whenever I speak in address in federal party meeting, always I get the note, Mr. Amarthalingam has come to the platform, reduce your speech. Now I am sure Mr. President will give me a note. Mr. Mano Ganeshan is at on the stage, so therefore I have to reduce my speech. Before I get the note, I will make sure I am going to.
Since it is a memorial speech, you can continue.
Thank you. Fine. So, it is evident that Mr. Selvarayam has, under his leadership, Tamil people have formulated the electoral norm of self-rule, autonomy and federalism. So, unfortunately, we were not recognized, or these demands were not recognized. So, I wish to briefly outline how these concepts have become constitutional and undeniable constitutional and international legal principles. Since the formation of the United Nations, the concept of sovereignty, territorial integrity have undergone tremendous changes and progressive evolution in order to achieve peace and prosperity to all. In the charter of the other international instruments enacted by the member states aim to achieve the goal. The UNO as the Society of States aim to achieve universal harmony, peace and friendly cooperation among people of all continents. In order to achieve this aim, it has endorsed democracy, self-determination and protection of human rights as precondition. It has to be noted that the contemporary international law while recognizes the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states, it imposes the duty of responsibility and accountability on states. Within this context, Professor Robert Jackson has stated in his book Quasi-Sovereignty and International Relations that the states of the Third World, which gained their independence according to the Charter provisions, were keen in order to gain the benefits of the safety net of the UN provided to states while denying to fulfill their obligation under the Charter. Further, as the evolution of these rights, Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948, which was proclaimed by the UN, in its preamble states, it is essential, if man is not to be compelled to have recourse as a last resort to rebellion against tyranny and oppression, that human rights should be protected by rule of law. As far as in the document, fortunately, they have not identified or used the word terrorism. They are using as rebellion against tyranny. As far as Tamil people are concerned, we are subjects of international law. As Sri Lankan government is concerned, Sri Lanka is a primary subject of international law, and they are entitled to maintain the sovereignty and territorial integrity. In similar way, Tamil people are entitled for regional autonomy and federalism and to prosper their life under the constitutional justice. It has to be mentioned under the UN conventions, human rights treaties, Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the right to self-determination is recognized and Tamil people are entitled for these rights. When I wish to, as minister on the stage, I wish to refer in the International Court of Justice in the Palestinian case, when Israeli government, after conquering this Palestinian territory, they constructed walls. When that matter went to the ICJ, International Court of Justice has mentioned every state has a duty to refrain from any forcible action which deprives the people of their right to self-determination. I am sure all the lawyers among the audience will agree it is a universal application. It is applicable to Tamil people as well. It is appropriate to refer few lines of the judgments of the Canadian Supreme Court when it pronounced judgment in the Quebec sovereignty referral case. Because I am emphasizing this, our honorable ministers here, whenever Tamil people are asked for our rights, and when we are demanding our rights, they say the territorial integrity and sovereignty. Territorial integrity and sovereignty are conditional upon fulfilling certain conditions. It is not my statement, it is a Canadian Supreme Court. In the Quebec sovereignty referral case as mentioned, a state whose government represent the whole of the people or peoples within its territory on the basis of equality without discrimination and respect the principles of self-determination in its internal arrangements. We are asking for federalism. So it is an obligation of the Sri Lankan government to recognize the sovereign self-determination in its internal constitutional arrangement. That means they have no choice other than recognizing the federal rule for Tamil people. It is entitled to maintain its territorial integrity under international law, and to have the territorial integrity recognized by other states. Before I have to mention another very important matter. As one of Minister Mano Ganeshan is here, Honorable Mr. Ganeshan, we can say for the time being our Foreign Minister, Mr. Mangala Samaravira, after in Geneva human rights sessions, after he went back to Sri Lanka, he has mentioned resolutions are not made not written on stones. However, I wish to draw the attention to Mr. Mano Ganeshan. We all know Mr. late Veeramandri, Justice Veeramandri, was Sri Lankan lawyer and who was the Indian Court of Justice judge. He has relied on UN resolution whenever he drafted his judgments. Particularly in the East Timor case, he has relied on the UN resolution in order to recognize the right to self-determination. At the same time, when the General Assembly referred the matter of the usage of nuclear weapons and its legality, Mr. Veeramandri has relied on United Nations resolutions, and he has recognized, or the ICJ has recognized the validity, international legal validity of the UN resolutions. Therefore, I have mentioned, outlined the federalism, regional autonomy and self-rule are the legitimate demand of the Tamil people, and international law and UN system and customary and conventional and international law recognizes the Tamil people's rights. Therefore, it is the duty of Sri Lankan government to recognize and bring peace and grant justice to the Tamil people. Thank you very much.